Oh, hello, and welcome back to Gazeta Brasil. I'm your host, Euan Marshall, and it's been a while. Have you missed me? I've missed you. Well, today we're going to go over the 2018 Brazilian Championship, which starts this weekend. We're going to have a look at some of the potential title contenders and a few players to watch out for. But first, let's roll those titles. Okay, so I've got my coffee, a little bit of pistachio cake, and my miscellaneous selection of newspapers, so it's time to talk some Brazilian football. Now, after the 2 months of soul-destroying and ultimately irrelevant state championships, Brazil's national championship is just about to get underway. Now, it starts this weekend and it'll run until the start of December with a 5-week break in the middle for the World Cup. So first off, let's take a look at the favourites. So Corinthians, they are the reigning Brazilian champions and fresh from winning the São Paulo State Championship. So naturally, they will go into this year's league with a good chance of winning for the second time in a row. It must be said, however, that Corinthians stormed the league last year without ever really being spectacular. They were solid in defence, they were dependable, they were able to grind out a lot of results, but a lot of the ease with which they were able to win the league was down to the instability of the chasing pack. This year they're really unlikely to have it as easy. And what's more, they've lost some of the most important players, most notably former Everton and Man City flop Joe, who, you'll just have to take my word for this, was one of the best players in Brazil last year. Now, could they win the league again? Yeah, sure, why not? But they're not clear favourites, as there are a pair of other clubs who seem better positioned to win the league this year, one of them being Grêmio, the current South American champions, and the other being Palmeiras, who are Corinthians' closest rivals and the runners-up in the Brazilian Championship last year. Okay, first let's take a look at Grêmio. They are the current South American champions, having won the Copa Libertadores at the end of last year, and they're still flying high this year, having just won their state championships last week. And the club have recently announced that they're about to build a statue of their current charismatic manager, Renato Gaúcho. So, as you can imagine, morale is pretty high at the club. Now, last season, Grêmio focused on winning the Copa Libertadores and they basically took their eyes off the Brazilian Championship. And you couldn't help but feeling that if they'd wanted to, they could have, in fact, won the league. So the big question surrounding Grêmio is regarding whether they can keep a hold of their best players. Barcelona are already set to pay 30 million euros in July for their creative midfielder Arthur, and 25-year-old forward Luan is one of the most talented players in the Brazilian league at the moment, and he's always been courted by European clubs. For instance, in January he turned down a move to Newcastle United. Now, moving on to Palmeiras, who undoubtedly have the deepest squad and the most technically gifted squad in Brazilian football at the moment. For instance, their second string 11 would probably be solid starters for most first division clubs. And they also have a competent and promising manager in Euan Marshall, who actually helped to build the Grêmio side that are the current champions of South America that we just talked about a second ago. And they haven't quite come together as a team yet, and they haven't done well in quite a few high-pressure matches already in 2018, much to the displeasure of the always demanding Palmeiras support. But a long 38-game tournament would suit Palmeiras at the moment. They are good enough to beat most teams in Brazil without having to play particularly well, and as the season goes on, you would expect Euan Marshall's tactical system to become more and more natural to the players, meaning they'd be in good stead for a proper title push around October and November. Besides those three, some are expecting good things from Cruzeiro this year, but their chances were hampered when former Brazil striker oh, come on, that's not funny. When former Brazil striker that's better, when he suffered a very serious knee injury and he's going to be out for almost all of the season after tearing multiple ligaments in his right knee. Now, onto the players. In all honesty, last year's championship was a bit underwhelming in terms of collective and individual quality, But this year is already shaping up to be a lot better. We've got a lot of promising youngsters who are breaking onto the scene. Now, Grêmio's previously mentioned Arthur is a wonderful footballer, and all fans of Brazilian football will be hoping that even if Barcelona do decide to sign him in July, that they'll allow him to stay in Brazil until the end of the year. Now, someone who is very unlikely to stick around is Flamengo forward Vinicius Junior, as he will join Real Madrid in July as soon as he turns 18 years old. Now, Madrid signed Vinicius for 45 million euros when he was only 16, leading people to question whether he or any 16-year-old footballer could be worth such amount of money. Now, of course, no 16-year-old footballer is worth 45 million euros, but Vinicius has started to show some true and possibly limitless potential. In a recent high-pressure Copa Libertadores match away to difficult side Emelec in Ecuador, Vinicius Junior came off the bench with 20 minutes to go, with his team 1-0 down. He scored 2 beautiful goals, and Flamengo won that game 2-1. Now, once he goes, Flamengo will be looking to 20-year-old Lucas Paquetá to pick up some of the slack. Now, Paquetá really came from nowhere. He was unknown a few years ago. He was even playing on the bench for the reserve side, but he's grown hugely in confidence, and he's got some excellent flair, some really good little flicks and tricks, and good vision as well. He's extremely confident. This is a huge year for him. Finally, another one to look out for is Santos' 17-year-old forward Rodrigo, who in his very first continental game for the club, he scored a crucial goal for the team, dribbling from inside his own half, beating 2 players and sticking the ball through the goalkeeper's legs. Now, young players always get plenty of time on the pitch at Santos, so I'll be able to keep a close eye on him this season. Now, as I said earlier, the league kicks off on Saturday this weekend, and it kicks off in style with Cruzeiro hosting Grêmio at 4 p.m. on Saturday. Now, personally, I'll be at the Arena Corinthians on Sunday as the reigning champions, Corinthians of course, start their title defence at home to Fluminense. And I'll also be in the Morumbi Stadium on Monday night to watch São Paulo take on the newly promoted Paraná Clube. So I'll be posting a bunch of updates and videos from both of those games, so make sure you're following the Gazeta Brasil account on Instagram. I'll put a link above and in the description below, and make sure you activate your story notifications, your post notifications, so that you don't miss anything that we're posting from these games. So that's all for this week. Feels pretty good to be back actually, doesn't it? Now, I'll see you all next week for a roundup of what happened in this first week of the National Brazilian Championship. So, as I said before, follow us on Instagram. We're posting a lot of fun stuff there every day, and it's a really good way to kind of interact with you guys. And like our page on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, subscribe to the YouTube channel, that's very important. And I mean, tell your friends about the channel. Anything, every little helps, honestly. Anyway, it's goodbye from me, Euan Marshall, your host, and I'll see you all next week for another edition of Gazeta Brasil. Ciao, ciao.